Hello and welcome to Beginner Piano Lessons, a 14-week course designed to help you feel confident with the basics of piano. I'm your teacher Dylan Laine, and today's goal is to learn how to memorize every note on the staff. Before we get started, make sure to download a free sample of my Beginner Piano Lessons ebook, which I'll place a link to in the description box down below. For every video in this course, there's a related page in the ebook containing color-coded examples, pictures of my hands on the piano chords, simplified definitions, as well as links to the related videos. Starting with the treble clef, we learned that the bottom line is E, the second line is G, third line B, fourth line D, and fifth line F. The best way to memorize the treble clef lines is by forming a sentence using all of those letters, E, G, B, D, and F. The sentence I use is, "Every good boy does fine." Memorize that line and it will help you to memorize all of the lines on the treble clef staff. Moving on to the spaces in the treble clef, starting from the bottom and going up, are F, A, C, and E, which spells face. So it's helpful to remember that the treble clef spaces spell face. Moving on to the bass clef lines, our bottom line is G, then B, D, F, and A. The sentence that I use for the bass clef lines is, "Good burritos don't fall apart." The sentence I use for bass clef spaces is, "All cows eat grass." Putting this into practice, I'm going to place 3 measures of music on the screen, and we'll try naming the notes together. There's a treble clef at the beginning of the staff, so we'll need to recall our treble clef lines sentence and our treble clef spaces sentence. The first note is on a line, so I'll need to recall my sentence for the treble clef lines. "Every good boy does fine." The first note is on the first line, so I'll look at the first word in my sentence, which is every. Every starts with an E, so that tells me that our first note is an E. The next note is on the fourth line, so I'll go to the fourth word in my line sentence. Every good boy does, so D. And there are 2 Ds that I could go to. I could go to the D, which is right below this E, or I could go all the way up to this D. The way that I know which D to play is by looking at the staff and seeing that the D written is higher on the staff than the E. That tells me that I need to go up to the next highest D. So our first 2 notes are E, then D. Our next note is on the second line, so I go to every good, the second word good, which starts with a G. I can see on the staff that the G is lower than D, so I'll go down to G. And then our next note is on the top line of the staff, so every good boy does fine. Fine starts with an F, and it's going higher in pitch, so I'm going to go all the way up to F. Next we have a space, so I'm going to recall my space sentence, F-A-C-E for face. And this is the top space, which means that this is going to be an E. The next note is on the first space, so we'll go all the way down to F, because F is the first letter in face. Then we have the second space, so F-A, again spelling the word face. And then we have a line. So going back to our line sentence, every good boy does fine. This is on the fourth line. Every good boy does, D. Our next note is going to be all the way down to middle C. Always remember that middle C is going to be the line below the treble clef or the line above the bass clef. And then our next note is going to be on the third space, so F-A-C, spelling out face, all the way back up to C. Our next note is on the third line, every good boy, B. And last we go back down again to middle C. Now let's try some notes in the bass clef. So let's switch over to our left hand. Our first note is on the fourth space, so let's recall our bass clef space sentence. All cows eat grass. So because this is on the fourth space, we'll go all cows eat grass. So G. Our next note is on the first space. Our space sentence is all cows eat grass, and all is our first word. So we'll go all the way down to A. Our next note is on the third space. All cows eat, up to E. Our next note is on the second space. All cows, so down to C. And again, how do we know to go up or down? Look at the note on the staff and see, is it going up from the previous note or down? Our next note is going to be on a line, so we need to recall our bass clef line sentence, which is good burritos don't fall apart. It's on the first line, which would be good, G. Our next note is on the fourth line, good burritos don't fall, F. Our next note is on the second line, good burritos, B. Our next note is on the fifth line, good burritos don't fall apart, A. Our next note is on the third line, good burritos don't, down to D. Then all the way up to middle C, since it's one line above the bass clef staff. Our next note is on the third space, so going back to our space sentence, all cows eat, down to E. And our last note is on the second space, all cows, down to C. As you might have noticed, there are multiple C's on the piano, as well as multiple D's and E's and F's. In the next lesson, you'll learn how to locate multiple C's on the piano as well as on the staff. Again, check the description box for a link to download a free sample of my Beginner Piano Lessons ebook, as well as for links to all 44 videos in this course. I'm Dylan Laine, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.